Welcome to this evening's MLTAV ICT Blended Learning Webinar, brought to you by the very generous support of the Victorian Government. Tonight I'm joined by a fabulous presenter. You have probably met her before if you've attended an MLTAV conference, or perhaps if you have watched one of these webinars before. So tonight Rowena is joining us again. Rowena has been a language teacher for 25 years. She's worked in a range of schools, both here in Victoria and overseas. She's an incredible educator of young people and an adult educator as well, I'll add. She has a master's in linguistics. She's a Microsoft innovative educator trainer. She's interested in second language acquisition theory. And for me, what she does is always give me a little something more to think about how I might better integrate technology in my classroom to make my life easier. And that was probably one of the key things I took away from Rowena's conference presentation this year, is that technology isn't just an add-on, it's actually something that is there to enhance our work as educators and to enhance the learning of our students. So today, Rowena's going to share with us a little bit more about QR codes. You might have seen them before. You might have thought, oh gosh, that's a fuzzy little barcode. I wonder what that's all about and what they're for. But thanks, Rowena, for joining us and for sharing your expertise tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. It's always lovely to have you, and thanks for taking up this invitation.
Starting off using QR codes in the language classroom. First question, I guess, is what is a QR code? So on this slide, you can see I've just gone to town. Usually QR codes are kind of the boring black ones with dots, but you can create coloured ones. You can put logos in. If you look in the middle, I've put my little purple ink splotch as a logo. You can have different colours. Instead of dots, you can have all sorts of different shapes. So you can really, yeah, like I said, just go to town with how you design your QR code, and generally they're free to create. So how to create them? There are websites to create them. So the ones that I use a lot, QR Stuff, QR Code Monkey, QR Code Generator, webqr.com. So there's quite a few. You just need to Google QR code generator and millions come up. There are also bookmarklets, and I'll show you one of those a little bit later. It's basically a little Google Chrome add-in. If you click it, it will create a QR code right there for the website that you're currently on. So it's really handy to be in class. If you just want the students to go to a particular website, instead of writing it on the board and then typing it in and making a mistake, they just scan with a QR code and it takes them directly there. So I guess the next thing is how to read a QR code. And until recently, I always thought they were something you needed a mobile device for, either a tablet or a phone. But I've since discovered there are web-based readers, and there's WebQR, the QR code generator.com. There's a scanning function, and I'm not sure about Mac computers, but I have a Windows computer, and there's quite a few in the Windows store. I use QR code for Windows 10, and I just use my laptop, the camera in my laptop, to scan a QR code, so it works really easily. For mobile readers, Enigma is quite popular. It's for Android and Apple, but like I said, check the Apple Store or Google Play Store for apps. And newer phone cameras have built-in QR code readers. So if you just open the camera on your phone and hover it over the QR code, you might get a little website, or it might take you where the QR code leads. The next question, why do you use them? basically to give quick access to digital content. So anything that I want my students to have on that's digital, whether it's, well, yeah, on the internet somewhere, whether that's on the school, in our virtual classroom, or whether it's on the internet somewhere else, is it gives them access to that really easily and quickly. And the other good thing about them is they're a great way to link digital content with a physical object. So you might want to give a photocopied worksheet, but have some digital link, and a QR code is a great way of adding that in. So the first thing I started using them for was exactly that. This is from a booklet I produced for Year 10 students when they were finishing Year 10 and going on to Year 11. Some summer work and some revision things that they could do over the summer. And I knew that to type, for example, French in a click 2008/grammar is quite difficult. And I mean, well, that one's not too bad, but there are others that are very long and confusing. So I gave them some QR codes, and they found it really useful as a way to get to those websites really easily. The next way I used them was to link an explanatory video to a task. So this is a worksheet on the conditional that I wanted students to answer. So it's what would you do if, and there were lots of different scenarios. So they all had to answer using the conditional, but I wanted them to have access to an explanatory video on how to form the conditional. So that's the QR code in the corner, and it takes them to a link on possibly YouTube with an explanation of how to form the conditional and when to use it. So if they were struggling with the kind of nuts and bolts of the grammar, there's help right there for them. So it makes it a little bit easier for them.
Rowena, what I imagine with this one is when you've got really large classes of students as well, like I'm thinking, you know, those classes that are, you know, 27.
Yes.
And you can't get around to them all to answer their questions. This would be awesome because they can self-direct to the explanation.
That's right.
Find what they need and then get unstuck before they wait for you to deal with 7 students first. So that would be awesome. That's
right. Yeah. So it's good. It, you know, doesn't waste their time waiting around for me to come and explain how to do it.
Yeah, fantastic.
This is another one. It's the same type of idea. It's from a Year 12 French exam, and I made a screencast of me basically taking this text apart and pointing out the difficult words, what words mean. I spent a lot of time in class, even though they're allowed a dictionary in VCE, I still spend time developing the skills that they need so that they don't have to use a dictionary. So things like, well, not so much guessing, but using words that they know, linking a French word to an English word. So here, for example, in the second paragraph, the first line, there's innovatrice. So I'll say, well, that, you know, sounds a lot like innovate. So it's something new. And talk about the language and how it's put together, basically. And then I went on to answer the questions. But this main part was sort of taking the text apart and showing them what I'm thinking when I'm doing this so that they can get that extra bit of help and they know what's expected. And I guess little tips and tricks from someone who's done a few French exams. A similar type of thing was this one where I'm doing a writing, it's a writing question from an English exam. So I'm actually taking them through what I'm writing, why I'm writing it, how it relates back to the text, and it's basically giving them a worked example of how to answer this question. And I don't do it obviously for every question, but I mention things that are common and things that they need to do on a general kind of level for every question. A few years ago, I bought a few of these little pads to congratulate students who worked well in class. And then I thought I'd add a QR code to it because the little note as it stands is nice, but a bit of extra detail would be nice. So, and a bit more personalisation as well. So I added a QR code and left a voice message. So the student could, or the parent could scan the code and find out exactly, you know, what the student did that was really good in French today. And they seem to appreciate not only getting the note, but the additional feedback on, you know, what they did well and how they're going. They really like that as well. So
it's like a conversation almost with, like, even though you're not necessarily there with them, but it's that personalised feedback that students and parents I know appreciate.
It is, yes, and parents, yeah, love it. So that's, I mean, it's just they're kind of small things, but I think overall they make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that builds up relationship as well. Like, we know that it's hard sometimes for our students in languages to take risks. Yes. And that feeling that we see the effort that they're putting in and the progress that they're making, that does make a difference for them in terms of their desire to try again and have another go and take more risks in our classroom, particularly with their oral work.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So, oh yes, I've had a lot of success with just adding a QR code. So it takes no time. It's really, really worthwhile. I also like to link the audio file with the listening activity. I got really tired of, especially when I set listening for homework. I couldn't do that because I didn't know which sound file to listen to. I got that excuse quite a few times. And so I thought, well, I've got to get around this somehow. And a QR code was the ideal way of doing it. So there's no mistake. Here's your listening sheet, and it links to the audio file that's in the virtual classroom, or if you don't have a virtual classroom, Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive, some online source. And so it's made listening a kind of feasible activity for homework or for outside the class. And they don't need to, if I was doing this in class, I might, play it twice, maybe 3 times, whereas this allows them to do it at their own speed. If they need to pause, they can rewind, they can listen as many times as they want to. And it's that kind of personalisation that is sometimes lacking when you're doing listening all together in class as a class activity. Not that I don't do that anymore, I still do, I think it's valuable, but it's also good to give them some success and to let them feel that they're achieving something.
Yeah.
And that listening's not quite as hard as they thought it was.
Yes. And I think that's been one of the best things, hasn't it, around those audios now being so digitalised. We have them now stored electronically, and that means that they are shareable with students if you want them to be, or not, as the case might be. But what an asset as well, particularly if you did an activity in class, a student could follow up and go through and get take out the vocab that was new, or there's lots of follow-up I can see as well.
Yes, yes. So it's that's really handy. Sometimes when I introduce, for example, here's a new tense, I often give them a text like this where the vocab is fairly well known. It's just the tense that's new. So I might take something that they've written in the present tense and I'll change it to imperfect. So this is a little story that I wrote about my time when I was in primary school, and I want them to listen as well. I want them to get the spelling sound so they can hear and get the right pronunciation for the imperfect. So that's quite useful as well if you want them to listen to a story. The same thing, listen to a poem. One of our assessment tasks is for students to recite a poem, and it's quite tricky. And we give them sound files, but this just helps them straight away because there's no ambiguity. This is what you need to listen to in order to, practice this poem. Listen and repeat. I've used it as well with storybooks. It kind of upset me a bit to put a QR code on a book. I'm from the generation where you don't write in books and you don't damage books. So it took a little bit for me to put a QR code on a book. But again, it's the same idea. They can listen to the story. For primary schools, that would be, I think, really useful. Not so much, obviously, for older students, although I use this book with year 9s. So yeah, it's quite, again, just linking digital and physical.
I can see, Rowena, too, what you're thinking about there is that I've got a son in grade prep, and his experience of reading talking books isn't something we can really readily replicate in a second language unless you create the talking version of the book. We don't seem to have that same access to the resources that, say, a child growing up with an English speaking library of books seems to have. So what a great idea.
Yeah, no, it works really well. And again, there's words obviously that they're not familiar with, and so they hear the pronunciation of them as well.
The sense that you don't also have to understand every word on the page to understand the meaning. Like, I think that's right. So great for them, because sometimes that is an intimidating aspect for our students as second language learners. But in fact, they've got lots of literacy skills that they access when they engage with an unfamiliar text. And there's so many visual cues on this page as well, which you could really exploit.
That's right, yes.
What a fantastic little text.
Yeah, it's great. If you're into mini books, you can create a talking mini book. I use mini books with younger classes. This is just a quick one I made the other day. And what you can do is add a QR code, and a student can record themselves reading what they wrote on the page. So this one is a little one about activities. So it's on Monday, I do this, on Tuesday, or in this case Thursday. And just add a little sentence and record themselves talking about it. Mini books are great for verb conjugations as well. I use them when I'm teaching verbs, either regular verbs or irregular. They're really good because they fit in the kid's pocket, in the student's pocket, and they can look at them on the bus, or it's a really handy way of getting them to have a little bit of French every day, but it's not a big deal. It's just something that goes in their pocket and they can pull out for 5 minutes. It's not like getting out your laptop and logging onto a website and doing that sort of thing. So it's quite good for that as well. QR codes are really handy. I created this activity because I wanted, students were doing a weather report as an oral, and I wanted them to get a lot of practice at saying, in this city the weather is this and it is this many degrees. But I didn't want to create all these sentences myself, so I set them to do it. There's a website called vocaroo.com where you can you press play and it records, sorry, press record and it records. You press play to see if you like it, and if you don't, you start again, and if you do, you can save it, and one of the options is to save it as a QR code, and then I've asked them to copy it and paste it into the table here. So for each city, they have to tell me what the weather is and what the temperature is and make a QR code. They then hand me in the sheet. I cut up all of these QR codes, put them around the room, and they go around and listen and work out, fill in the 10 cities. So there'll be, for example, for Lyon, there might be 10 different sentences for Lyon. And so they're scanning these QR codes, and when they get to a sentence about Lyon, they write it down. Some of them, if they come to, like if they end up with 3 versions of Lyon, they'll write down all 3. Less conscientious students will write down 1 and that'll be it. But they're getting a lot of practice with the same type of language. So it's not like listening to the weather report from France every day, because it's too hard and it's different. I want them to keep recycling the same language all the time. So this was a really good way for them to create the content for the class. Scavenger hunts are the traditional way of using QR codes. And so I started with one, and this was the task sheet. I told them that there are 10 QR codes hidden around the school. And when they find it, they scan it. 5 of the sentences they will hear will be in English and 5 will be in French. So they write it down and then translate it. So it's a dictation activity first and a translation activity second. And I said first ones to come back to the classroom with their page full, or I think I gave them 15 minutes. That wasn't quite enough, but I didn't want to spend a huge amount of time on it. But they went out and they were listening. So these were the sentences. The red ones are what I recorded using Vocaroo. And they're the QR codes that I just cut up and placed around the school in different parts of the school. And they had to find them. If I was doing it again, make it a little bit easier. So for example, for number 1, that talks about maths, I might put number 2 near a maths room. So they'll read that it's maths and they'll go to the maths area of the school. And then for number 2, I'll so that they are circular, so that not everyone starts with number 1. You can start anywhere, and so long as you go around and when you finish, you come back to the class. So there's a couple of ideas there of how to, if you wanted to do a scavenger hunt. I used this one as well for an English class, ESL class. And I just gave them the QR codes, which was me reading the text. And the idea was that they listen and then put the text back in order so that they end up with a recipe for Anzac biscuits. So the task was to listen and write me a recipe for how to cook Anzac biscuits. It worked quite well. They liked the novelty of it. I think QR codes, there is a bit of a novelty factor with it, and I don't use them that often. I don't do these type of activities that often, but now and again it's good for motivation, and it gets them really enthusiastic. You can create a talking wall as well. I don't have a picture of this, sorry, but if you display students' work on a notice board, you can put on a QR code which links to a video of them or an audio of them describing how they made what they are displaying, or if it's like a wanted poster, describe themselves, just to add a bit of extra information to what is a static display. And it's really good. Admin love it for interaction when parents come around or when it's open day. So it's a really good way of promoting the department as well, so that the people walking through the corridor, they stop and they look. They don't just walk past and go keep going. It's a bit of a talking point. The thing I love QR codes for most is for giving audio feedback. And basically, you attach a QR code to a piece of work. Sometimes for like a Year 12 essay, I'll put it in one QR code per paragraph, and I record the audio feedback while I read the work. The student then scans the code, listens to the feedback, and fills in a feedback sheet. So they get their work back with no ink on it from me. And it's up to them to listen to what I've told them, and they'll have a sheet that says paragraph 1, what was good, what needs improvement. They go away and they fill it in and fix it up. If you wanted to do an extension activity, give them the assessment criteria, or make them use the assessment criteria to mark their work, and then compare it with the mark that you gave the work. The program I use for audio feedback is Quicker, and it's a little bit different from other QR codes where you create the article first. So you create the video or the text or the audio, and then you make a QR code. This is a bit different. You've got the QR code and you attach audio, text, or web links or video to it. There is a premium version which costs a whole £1.50 a month, which allows you to do video feedback. It allows you to edit feedback after you've published it, and most importantly, it allows you to tag and track feedback, so you know when students have listened to the feedback. There is a premium version for groups which costs £60 a year for 10 teachers, so it's a little bit cheaper, but really I think £1.50 a month is not that expensive for the things that it does. To use it, you go to quicker.co.uk and sign up. You can print up to 25 pages of QR code stickers. You just attach your sticker to a piece of work, scan the sticker with your phone or your tablet or your laptop, record your feedback. When the student scans the sticker, they're taken directly to your feedback.
Rowena, can I ask, when you use this, do you mostly do it for sort of summative tasks, or is it more formative kind of assessment when you give verbal feedback? Do you have a kind of preference or tendency to use it for one or the other?
I guess I'd probably both. I might, for summative assessment, I might give more detailed feedback.
Okay.
And I might go into, you made a grammar mistake here and your verb conjugation was wrong, or you used the wrong tense. Whereas for just formative feedback, I'll just maybe pick 2 or 3 things that were good, and 2 or 3 things they need help with.
Okay. Yep.
So I guess it's the same thing. It just depends how much and how detailed you want to go.
Yeah.
Here are some screenshots that I saved from my phone. So starting off, you can, the yellow ones are the premium £1.50 a month version. So you can tag it, you can record video, audio, you can take a photo, you can put in text, or you can put in a web link. So you go through all of these and then click on View Your Quicker, and that's it. You get taken. That's how you set it up and give it to the student, and the student receives it when they scan the QR code. If you wanted some tips and tricks, I sometimes use color-coded QR code for different topics or different groups. It depends again how far you want to sort of take this. Black is fine, but sometimes if you're using QR codes in the classroom, I might put, grammar in red and vocab in blue or things like that. So being able to colour code is quite useful. I talked to you a bit before about Vockaroo. It's good and it's really simple to use. The only problem is the audio is only saved on site for a few months. So it's good for students because you might not want to keep their work forever. But it's if you wanted to make an activity on Vockaroo, you might not be able to use it next year. So it might be okay as a once-off. But if you're looking for something for next year, I would make a proper audio file and save it in Google Drive, OneDrive, somewhere, and leave it and use a normal QR code generator to make QR codes for it. And I'll show you in a second a QR code scavenger hunt. Classtools.net has a really great QR code scavenger hunt. So this is it. This is Class Tools. It's really super simple to use. You just click on Get Started, and you'll end up with this page where you give your quiz a title, put in your questions with an answer. So these are places in school that I wanted students to practice. So where can you, read a newspaper, buy a sandwich, play tennis? And I put these QR codes up again as a kind of scavenger hunt. So for the first one, where can you read a newspaper? The answer is obviously the library. So that would send them to the library, where they would get the next QR code. Where can you buy a sandwich? Canteen, go to the canteen and find the next one. So if you want to edit your quiz, you need to put in a password. Otherwise, you just click on Create. And you get to see all of these. So you see the questions that the students get. Oh, sorry, no, the students don't get anything. Students get QR codes. So that's for the teacher. The QR code for each question is just here. So you just print them out. It's really easy to do. And then put them around. You can edit, you can create a new quiz. You have to make sure that students have a QR code reader on their device, but it's, like I said, it's fairly easy to download. The other thing I wanted to show you was the bookmarklet, which is show QR code. So any website that you're on, if you just click on that, you will get a QR code.
Awesome.
And so a student can scan it with their phone in class. It's really, really easy to use. So that's pretty much it for me, unless you wanted, if you have any questions, or that's all it's all I've got for you with QR codes.
Now, I think we've been joined by Doris. I'm not sure if Doris has got a microphone there or if she had any questions at all. Doris, if you do, feel free to pop on your microphone and ask a question of Rowena if you wish. I'll unmute you. Here we go. Are you there, Doris? No, perhaps not. That's all right. Rowena, what I imagine is that this opens up real possibilities for interaction between the students and the language, the students and like each other, but also things like inanimate objects, like you were saying before. I had a go at this recently with a unit of work I'm doing at Year 9 at the moment with my Year 9 French class, where we're learning about, well, they're really interested in travel. So we're learning about Paris, and we had a visit to the Louvre. I had a few photos of some artworks in particular that are very well known, that I'm sure people who watch this down the track may have also visited. So La Joconde is one, the Mona Lisa. We had the Venus de Milo as well, and they had a little QR code on them so the students could scan them. They had some information to find, to sort of work out, you know, why would you want to go and see these things? Why do people even line up to see the Mona Lisa anyway? You know, what's so interesting and intriguing about her and so forth? But it let them have just a simple printed image in the classroom, but so much more interaction with it than just me printing a worksheet or a handout or a reading activity. It was just so much more alive in the space, which at this time of year with Year 9s, that's got to be a pretty important aspect of keeping them on the go at the moment, because they're a challenging, it's a challenging time with Year 9s. So I just imagine it must bring the classroom to life.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's really, really good, really handy. And I like I said, you can just, it opens up a whole world on a worksheet.
Yeah. Which
would otherwise be quite boring, I think.
Yeah, and I love what you've spoken about before, those the stickers.
Yes.
Make it so much easier, because I think that's another challenge with QR codes. Once you've printed them, you know, what do you do with them next? But having them on a sticker, quick and easy, peel it off, stick and go.
That's it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Too good. Well, Rowena, I might say on that note, thank you so much for your sharing this evening.
Okay, you're welcome.
You're always such a generous contributor, you know, to our professional conversations. And I know I always, walk away thinking, gosh, okay, there's something there I'm going to have a go at using, or I'm going to have a play with. So thank you again for your sharing.
That's okay.
If tonight you think, yeah, I've got questions, I'm sure Rowena would be happy to hear from you with any questions that you have. We'll make sure that you are able to reach her if you contact the MLTAV. And at this point, I say thank you all for joining us. We hope, oh, hello, Doris, I've just seen your message. Doris has just commented that she's a Chinese primary school language teacher. Her students love Quizlet and Kahoot, and the sharing has opened her eyes and she'll give it a go. So that's awesome. I think that's the most important thing, right? It's just, we learn a little bit together, we have a go at something that has sparked our interest. And it's all about keeping language learning engaging and helping our students to feel that sense of success in their learning as well. So thanks, Rowena. Thanks, Doris, for joining us. And you'll see on the screen after this a link to the Survey Monkey that you can complete if you wish to get a certificate of participation in recognition of this time you've spent engaging in professional learning. Thank you so much, Rowena. I appreciate your sharing tonight, and we hope that you will join us again in the future for another MLTAV ICT Blended Learning webinar.